Warm greetings to each and every one of you on this Christmas day. Merry Christmas to you and to your families and to all those you love. I want to look with you. My name is Paul-André Durocher. I'm the Archbishop of Gatineau, and I want to look with you at the readings of the Mass of the day. Those of us who attend Mass on Christmas Eve are less familiar with these readings, but they are beautiful because they reflect on the meaning of the story of Christmas. The first reading is from the book of Isaiah, taken at chapter 52, verses 7 to 10. They were written at a time when Israel was about to be let out of exile, about 5 centuries before the time of Christ. Most of the people had been taken away into captivity, into Babylon. Jerusalem had been destroyed, the temple razed. But now something new is happening. A new kingdom has arisen, Persia, and they will allow the Israelites to return to their home. And this is seen as God's intervention, God's working. And so the prophet here presents a great message of joy. Let's see what he says. How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him who brings glad tidings, announcing peace, bearing good news, announcing salvation, and saying to Zion, your God is king. Zion is Jerusalem. It's the name of the hill on which Jerusalem is built. And here the prophet is extolling, you could say, the great joy of these good tidings, that the people are going to return. So we can imagine this messenger running from Babylon back to Jerusalem to the few that remain behind in poverty, to let them know that this people is going to be able to come back to their homes. And he's announcing, what is he saying? Peace and bearing good news. Good news, gospel. That's what gospel means. And so this is really a joyful event. The prophet continues, hark, your sentinels raise a cry. Together they shout for the joy. The sentinels who are watching on the walls of Jerusalem, well, not on the walls because the walls have been destroyed, but on the outskirts of Jerusalem, looking down into the desert, waiting for any sign of hope. They see this messenger running towards them, and you can tell the way a messenger runs. Is it good news? Is it bad news? No, this is good news. And so they shout for joy, the sentinels, but they see not only the messenger, for they see directly before their eyes the Lord restoring Zion. They see God at work. Then the poet turns and he says, break out together in song, O ruins of Jerusalem. He speaks to the very ruins, the rocks, but maybe also it refers to the people who've been left behind, who have been living in darkness, wondering what will befall them, what will happen, what has happened to their relatives who've been deported to Babylon. So pray out together in song, O ruins of Jerusalem. For the Lord comforts his people. He redeems Jerusalem. To redeem means to buy back out of slavery. Usually this is a work that is done by a relative. Here the relative is God himself. And finally, the prophet turns to the main actor in this story. The main actor is not the messenger, is not the sentinels, is not the people in Jerusalem. The main actor is God. The Lord has bared his holy arm in the sight of all the nations. All the ends of the earth will behold the salvation of God. Now, this text that I've just read to you is it was speaking about an event in the history of Israel, but Christians have reread these texts and they've been reinterpreted in terms of the good news of the coming of Jesus into the world. And the messengers of this good news, who are they? Well, it's you, it's me. We are called to be the messengers, to bring good tidings, to bring this good news, and to be a source of joy for all peoples. We turn now to the second reading, which is from the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 1, verses 1 to 6, a book that was written at the end of the first century, probably, after Christ. So this is a text written by people who've had a time to reflect on the depth of the marvel that God has worked in the life of his son, Jesus. We're used to calling Jesus the Son, and we don't realize the depth of the meaning of that word. But in this reading and in the gospel, we'll see how powerful this title given to Jesus truly is, because it speaks of the deep connection between Jesus and God, who is Father of us all, but in a particular way of Jesus, who comes to show us the Father's love. So we enter into this letter, and it's a kind of a prologue. Brothers and sisters, in times past, God spoke in partial and various ways to our ancestors through the prophets. In these last days, he has spoken to us through the Son. So here he's situating a change in time. God in the past spoke through the prophets in partial and various ways, different ways, but always in partials. Now it seems to imply that this is definite, definitive, that this is the fulfillment of everything that has gone in the past. He has spoken to us through the Son. And you see the title given here to Jesus, the Son. And he goes on to say things about the Son, about Jesus. He has been made heir of all things. Well, of course, the Son is heir to the Father's wealth. That's the way it was done in ancient times. And so he's heir, Jesus is heir of all things. But he's not just the heir, he continues, through whom God created the universe. So he's not only the one to whom the universe, you could say, is given, he's the one through whom the universe is. And the author continues, Jesus, the Son, he is the refulgence of the Father's glory, the very imprint of his being. These are powerful expressions that if you want to see God, look at Jesus, because Jesus is the illumination of God's glory in the world, the very imprint of his being, the perfect image of God. And he sustains all things by his mighty word. And it's the word of Jesus here that sustains all things. When he had accomplished purification from sins. This will be the topic of all this letter to the Hebrews, how Jesus in his death and resurrection has purified us all from our sins. So when he had accomplished purification from sins, he took his seat at the right hand of the Majesty on high. As far superior to the angels as the name he has inherited is more excellent than theirs. The people to whom this letter is addressed, people from the Jewish traditions, believed in angels as messengers of God. But here, the author is saying Jesus is so much more than these messengers, than the angels. He is raised, he is superior to the angels. And to show this, he quotes three verses from the Old Testament. For to which of the angels did God ever say, "You are my son, this day I have begotten you"? This is from one of the Psalms. And again, the title, "You are my son." To whom is God speaking? Well, the author says this is addressed to Jesus. "This day I have begotten you." Or again, "I will be a father to him, and he shall be a son to me," from one of the prophets. And again, when he leads the firstborn into the world, he says that all the angels of God worship him. And we saw that in the reading of the gospel last night, when the angels announce Jesus' birth to the shepherds, according to Luke's gospel. And they break out into song, "Glory to God in the highest," that all the angels of God worship him. So from reflecting on the Jewish scriptures, this author says, you see the connections between these scriptures that are dear to us and the newness that has been revealed to us in Jesus. We move now to the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 1 to 18, John says nothing about the story of the birth of Jesus, but he has this incredible reflection that opens the gospel, a prologue to the gospel, a bit like we've just read the prologue to the letter to the Hebrews. Here's the prologue to John's gospel. And it starts in the beginning. And these words are really important because John starts this exactly the same way the Bible itself starts at the book of the Genesis. In the beginning, when God created the world. Here it's a new beginning. In the beginning was the Word. In Hebrew, the logos. Logos is a word, but it's a powerful word. It's an active word. It's a word that organizes things. The word, you could say, is not adequate to translate the concept of logos in the Greek. So let's try to, when we hear this word, to think of the power of what it's trying to express. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. Here the author is trying to see into the very mystery of God, that God is not an eternal solitude, but in God there is God, but there is the Word, and eventually the Spirit. Eventually, in the sense that we will discover the Spirit is there from the beginning also. He was in the beginning with God. All things came to be through him, and without him nothing came to be. We heard that in the prologue of the Hebrews. Through his word, all things were made. What came to be through him was life. We can look at all of creation, but what is the greatest marvel in creation is life. And this life was the light of the human race. The light shines in the darkness. The darkness has not overcome it. And here the author stops and he turns an aside, you could say. A man named John was sent from God. This is John the Baptist. He came for testimony, to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He was not the light. He came to testify to the light. So this is the vocation of John the Baptist, to testify to the light that is coming into the world. Now he goes back to his reflection. The true light, which enlightens everyone, this light is for all people, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came to be through him, but the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, but his own people did not accept him. Here already he's speaking about the rejection of Jesus, his suffering, his death on the cross. But that isn't the end of the story. The author continues, but to those who did accept him, he gave power to become children of God. And here again we see this connection between God as Father, Jesus the Son. We are invited to enter into that relationship and become children of God. To those who believe in his name, who were born as children of God, not by natural generation, nor by human choice, nor by human decision, but of God. This is a new type of relationship with God. And the Word became flesh. And the word flesh for the gospel writer John is a word that speaks about the fragility of human beings, their weakness. And so saying that the Word, the eternal Word became flesh, is that this eternal Word took on our own weakness, our own fragility. And he made his dwelling among us. And we saw his glory, the glory as of the Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. For John, glory is very different from what we typically understand by glory. For John, the gospel writer, Jesus' glory will shine on the cross as he gives out his life out of love for us. We saw his glory, the glory as of the Father's only Son. You see here he's speaking of this relationship between Jesus and God. John the Baptist testified to him and cried out, saying, "This was he of whom I said, the one who is coming after me ranks ahead of me because he existed before me." Here he's quoting John the Baptist as testifying to the fact that Jesus of Nazareth is the Word made flesh. And he concludes his reflection, John the Gospel writer, by saying, "From his fullness we have all received grace in place of grace." Because while the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God. The only Son, God, who is at the Father's side, has revealed him. This is the depth of the meaning of the mystery of the birth of Jesus, that this is the only Son of God, who himself is God, who is now at the Father's side. He has revealed him to us in history. What a remarkable work of love God has achieved in the birth of his Son among us. And with that reflection, I leave you to rejoice, to ponder, and to live out of the Father's love for each one of us, because we are indeed his children. Merry Christmas.